Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Really excited to have my buddy David Dodge on today. We're going to be talking about the BRRRR method and really how to build wealth with rental. So it's something that you should be doing if you're not. And if you are already, you're going to learn some things too. Welcome to Real Estate Investing Secrets. We're all looking for freedom and the opportunity to live better, more fulfilling lives. But most of us were trained our entire lives to work for someone else and chase their dreams. How can we use real estate investing as a vehicle to achieve financial freedom? My life is dedicated to answering your real estate investing questions and helping you build an investing business that allows you to change your life and the world around you, and to enable you to turn your dreams of financial freedom into a reality. My name is Mike Hambright from FlipNerd.com, and your questions get answered here on the Real Estate Investing Secrets Show. Hey, David, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, glad to have you on and excited to talk about this today. You and I talked again, recently about rentals and stuff like that, and just how important it is. Like, early on, I wholesaled and I rehabbed more than I do now, but that was so I could keep rentals. And now I do multifamily stuff and some other bigger deals, which we all want kind of passive. I'll say passive. I'm going to use air quotes because it's never quite as passive as it should be, but it's a great vehicle for building wealth. Like real estate is amazing. It's done amazing things for me, and I know it has for you. So we're going to talk about today. But hey, before we jump in, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into real estate investing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I'm 37 years old. I started at the age of 20. I was in college and I started with house hacking, right? That's the best way to get started. You buy a property, you rent out the other rooms in that property, and you basically can live for free.
There you go.
And I did that 3 times while I was in school. And over the next, 7 years, I was working at various jobs. I even had a couple entrepreneurial stints doing, small businesses with friends, building websites and selling products online. And over that first 10-year period, I acquired 12 rental properties. So, not awful, not bad by any means. But after that 10-year period and working for other people, I decided, you know what? I want to do this for myself, and I really want to double down on real estate. So at the, bright young age of 30, 7 years ago, I went full-time into real estate, learned about direct-to-seller marketing and wholesaling. And since then, Mike, I've done over 700 wholesale deals, done over 200 BRRRR deals, and I've done about 1,000 transactions, give or take. And my passion at this point is just helping other people learn about real estate investing and how to acquire rental properties. And my favorite number one strategy that I love is the BRRRR method. And that's really where I spend the majority of my time nowadays is doing the BRRRR method and acquiring rentals with very little to none of my own money in the end.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're going to talk about the BRRRR method a lot today. Before we jump into that, maybe just give your case for like why rental properties make sense for real estate investors, because there's a lot of people focused just on wholesaling or fix and flipping. And, it ends up being maybe a high paying job ultimately, but I don't want to steal your thunder here, but ultimately they're not building up assets. But kind of give your case for why rentals make sense.
Yeah, so I have 18,000 reasons that rentals make sense, because we get $18,000 a month in passive income right now from our portfolio. So passive income is essentially income that we earn from the rentals, and it's above and beyond all the bills. It's also referred to as cash flow.
Yep.
And the beautiful thing about passive income, which I think most people probably don't know, at least I assume they don't, is that your passive income is taxed a whole lot less than your earned income. And Mike, here's the thing. I don't really agree with the way the government and the IRS tax people, but I know the way they do it, and I play the game the way that we're supposed to play it. So what does that mean? Right. Well, most people listening probably have a job, I would think, and they go and they trade time for money. And it's really unfortunate, but the highest tax that you can pay, is earned income. Right. It's like 30 to 45%, somewhere in that range, right? So with rental properties, you're earning income, but you're not trading time for it, and you're taxed a lot less. So that's why I love rentals.
Yeah. And the great thing is, I have a rental portfolio here in Dallas, and I had a mentor from the very beginning who said, now this is Texas. He's like, hey, you're not going to get a lot of appreciation here. You really want to focus on cash flow and this guy owns 2,000 properties. It has a lot of knowledge, right? But I'll tell you what, the appreciation has been insane the last 5 or 6 years. I never counted on it, but it's been amazing.
The last two has
Yeah.
been nuts.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little about the BRRR method. Maybe you could, for anybody that doesn't know what that is, just like tell us what it is first.
Yeah. So the BRRR method is, in my opinion, this is my definition of it. Everyone's going to have a little bit different definition. My definition is it's just a simple strategy that us real estate investors use to acquire assets with little to no money rapidly. That's how I define it. Now BRRRR in itself is an acronym. It's a B with 3 or maybe 4 R's, depending on how you want to do it. And that acronym is very simple. It stands for B stands for buy. And then the 3 R's, the main 3, would be rehab, rent, and refinance. And if you want to add that 4th R, that simply just means to repeat. So again, simple strategy that I love to use to acquire assets. And the goal is to use little to no money. And then again, that last R, repeat, is it's very scalable.
Right.
So, over the last 4 years, Mike, we've done about 200 of these. The average amount of money that we've left in our BRRRR deals is about $1,200. And, after 3, 4, 5 months of cash flow, you don't have any money invested in the deal at that point. So it's just awesome strategy.
That's great. And talk a little bit about why. So maybe talk about the financing part a little bit. How are you typically, obviously everybody knows you're going to buy it. We can spend a lot of time talking about acquisitions and stuff if we wanted to, but we won't on this episode. But then you're going to rehab it prepare it for a rental, right? Get it rent ready and get a tenant in it. And then talk about the finance part. Like, how are you financing out? And the idea is obviously refinance, pull your money out, go do the next one, go do the next one, go do the next one, right?
Absolutely.
So talk about what that refinance typically looks like. And then when you buy, what you typically teach is using hard money or something else up front and then refinancing out of that, or talk about
all the above. Yes. And yes.
Refinance
Yes. And yes. So before I do that, I want to just say one thing, right? So I told you a little bit about my past. I had 10 years of very passive investing. I was working other jobs, and I bought 12 properties, acquired 12 properties, which was pretty good. But here's the thing. I did it the wrong way. And the reason I say that is because I would locate a property that would be full retail, and I would find an agent. Maybe I'd find the agent first. Maybe I'd find the property first. Doesn't really matter. And I would go and I would purchase that property, and the banks would say, "Hey, Dave, no problem. We're going to give you an 80% loan." But I was paying full retail. So that would mean that I had to bring 20% to the table.
Right.
And of those first 12 properties that I acquired, the average purchase price was about 150 grand. And if you have to bring 20% to the table, that's $30,000 for each house, right? So that's the old way, right? So now let's talk about some of these questions that you just answered. The new way is I am going to earn my 20% that I would have to essentially put down with the old way. I'm going to earn that by buying properties at deep discounts and increasing value even more with rehabs. So now the goal is to be all into these properties at 80% of what they appraise for or less. And the bank still gives me an 80% loan, but this time they're lending on the appraised amount, not the purchase price. So I'm still essentially
on the upfront acquisition.
100%. So I'm not going to the bank to buy ever. I'm going to a private or hard money to borrow money to buy. I'm typically getting 100% of purchase, anywhere from 75 to 100 and even more, sometimes 120% of rehab, right? So I'm borrowing as much as I possibly can to acquire into rehab. And then I get it rented, which makes it an asset because money's now coming in. And then I go to the bank and I ask for not a loan to purchase anymore. I already own it. Now I'm saying, hey, can I get a refinance? And they say, hey, no problem, Dave. We're going to send the appraiser out and we're going to lend you 80%, typically, sometimes a little less, but typically 80% of what it appraises for. So I'm still putting in 20% like I was before, but the difference is I'm not putting it down. I'm earning it, and I'm using that sweat equity, that equity that is either captured or gained from the discounted buy in the rehab to put down. So that's how we're able to acquire properties with no money out of pocket. Mike, the goal is zero, to be honest. It's how do we acquire this asset that's going to pay us $300, $400, $500 a month and not have to use any of our own money? And again, private and hard money is the way we do that.
Yep. That's awesome. Yeah. Leverage is really the name of the game. Obviously you want to stay safe, but if you're doing it right, there's a lot of opportunity, especially if you're buying, rental properties are in high demand. They have been for a long time, but the rental rates have gone up and rents have gone up tremendously. I mean, we've been turning around some properties lately, just make readies, and I can't believe how much we're getting on the bumps. It's crazy.
Yeah. Cost of rehab's going up, cost of labor's going up. The values of real estate, those within themselves, each property is going up just, due to low inventory, also due to the amount of money the government is printing, inflation.
Yeah.
And, rates are going to be going up too, which is
Right.
going to prevent people from buying. So yeah, it may hurt us a little bit whenever we're getting refinances, but it's also going to prevent other people from buying, which means they're going to need to rent, which allows us to, rent those properties and or increase the rents of those properties. So
Right.
yeah, all things considered, I love the BRRR method. I love real estate, but I love the BRRR method because it allows me to acquire an asset and not put down 30 grand like I used to do. Now I can borrow all of it. And you said leverage, so I want to double down on that for a second. I love leverage. So much so that I use it in every aspect of my business. So I use leverage to market to sellers, and I have a team of virtual assistants and acquisitions folks that I leverage within my business to do that for me, right? I love leveraging other wholesalers because I can buy from them and still make the BRRR method work.
Yep.
So I'm leveraging all of those efforts. I leverage the private and hard money. We mentioned that. I don't fix properties, Mike. Come on, right? I leverage my general contractors and my subcontractors to make them look pretty again. I don't like to manage either. So I'm going to leverage a property manager to get at least and to maintain the relationship and collect the rent. And then last but not least, I'm going to leverage the local banks and credit unions to refinance. Leverage is the name of the game, my friend.
Yep. Also, let's talk a little bit about people that might be listening that are wholesalers or rehabbers. And I'm sure you do all those. I've done all of those as well. What I told you up front is used to have to wholesale. You kind of have to have active income for marketing and covering the costs of your team. If you have an office, stuff like that, to pay for that. Right. But that gave me the opportunity to keep some as rentals. But the truth is in hindsight, if I could go back in time now, we're always trying to learn, what would I do differently if I was, 10 years ago? And hopefully you can apply that to 10 years in the future. Back in 2000, let's just say 10 to 12, 13, I started in 2008. Like, if I look back now, I could have bought every property right off the MLS at full, retail price. Anything under 150, I would not only look like a genius, I would have been just wealthier than hell right now for sure. Right. The question is, are we going to look at that in 10 years and say, oh, back in 2022, I wish I had done that? With all the inflation stuff going on, we might, who knows? But the reality is in hindsight, I worked so hard to buy deals at super deep discounts, at playing the role of a wholesaler and then effectively selling it to myself as a renter. I could have bought a lot more rentals just by buying them from wholesalers. And they would have worked just fine, right? I didn't get them quite as deep, but I also didn't have a marketing expense. I had to pay an acquisitions guy probably. There was less expense in it for me, so I could have paid more. Talk about that a little bit. How in the rental, the BRRRR method or for rentals, you can, in theory, not that you always want to pay more, but you can in theory pay more because you don't have some of the costs you do if you're wholesaling and rehabbing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a wholesaler just like you. I am a fix and flipper just like you, and I'm a landlord just like you. So when I'm wholesaling a deal, I got to typically, get it to where there's quite a bit of meat on the bone, right? Because you can't sell a deal to another investor, a wholesale, and sell it to them at 95 cents on the dollar. They're not going to want it. Right. But most investors will buy at, maybe 80% or even maybe 85% in some cases, if they're able to add value with rehabbing it as well, right? Well, as a wholesaler, you typically got to be at, 70 or 75% of the ARV minus the repairs, because you have to leave some meat on the bone. You got to take a little bit of that meat to pay yourself, but you got to leave it on the bone, right? So as a landlord, I'm able to pay 0.8 or even 0.85, assuming I can add value with the rehab as well. Sure. So it allows me to be much more competitive. It also allows me to piggyback off of all the other efforts of the wholesalers in my market and let them go do all the cold calling and the appointments and the follow-up for sometimes years to get the deals. And I'm happy to pay them a $10, $15, $20,000 wholesale fee, assuming I can still buy that property, at a discount, right?
Yep.
So as a landlord and using the BRRR method specifically, Mike, as long as I'm all in, and that's all in for purchase, rehab, closing, holding, interest, all in, at or below 80%, I'm in. I want that deal because my banks will typically lend 80% of what it will appraise for on the refi.
That's great. And let's talk about the person that's listening right now that's got a full-time job, right? They're a W-2 person. I mean, one of the benefits of this model versus wholesaling or rehabbing is that you don't necessarily have to get it at the deepest wholesale price because let's be honest, the acquisitions and sales part of a wholesaling business is a business in and of itself, right?
It is. It
That
is.
front end. And so if you're able to buy from other wholesalers and you don't have that front end business, you in theory can do that part with a job, right? So talk about folks that maybe have that W-2 job, they have some money for rentals, but they don't have the time to go run a wholesaling operation, kind of marketing and acquisitions operation. Talk
Absolutely.
about how that
100%.
makes sense for those guys.
Yeah, so we have several students, that come into the program and they have a full-time job. And, I always tell people the best deals you're going to get are going to be the ones that you go direct to the seller. But if you have a full-time job and you don't have the time to do the marketing, or in some cases, people don't have the money to do the marketing, that's okay. And I mentioned this before, but I want to really emphasize and double down on this. We can piggyback on the efforts of the other investors in our area. So, I'd say somewhere between 30 and 40% of all the deals that we buy, me and my partner here, in our business, come from other wholesalers. And again, we're more than happy to pay them a wholesale fee because we're piggybacking on all of their efforts. Mike, wholesaling is a lot of work.
Yep,
It in
no
itself is a job, and we
No
do
doubt.
it, right? We do the marketing and we wholesale. But to us now, we know we've basically identified the fact that, hey, wholesaling is a very transactional business, and we want to get off of this transaction treadmill. So we're still going to wholesale the deals that we get under contract that we don't want to keep. They don't meet the buy box, but
Yep.
we're no longer just actively marketing for deals just to wholesale, right?
Okay.
So to answer your question though, is how could somebody that works a full-time job and doesn't have a ton of time, how can they, use the BRRRR method? And it's simple. They can use leverage just like I do. And they can leverage wholesalers, they can leverage hard and private money lenders, they can leverage general contractors, they can leverage property managers, and then of course, local banks and credit unions. And that's what we teach and show our students and hold their hand through, through deals and partner with them on deals to show them that, this is not that difficult. In fact, it's actually pretty simple. But you gotta jump in, you gotta get started.
Yeah, what's another interesting thing about the W-2 folks is honestly, if you're listening to this and you have a W-2 and you've been thinking about quitting your job, your chances of getting financing are better with a W-2 job.
They are, absolutely.
As soon as you become self-employed, there are still opportunities with hard money and things like that, but you have some tools that self-employed people don't have until they get a few years of track record. They have 2 years tax returns and all that. So take advantage of that while you still have your job, right?
Absolutely, man. Having a W-2, like you said, it's gonna, I never tell my students to, hey, go quit your job. I've had multiple students over the last couple of years, multiple that have had great success and they've been able to quit their job, right? But that was their decision. I never tell them to do so. And the main reason is because of what you just said.
Yep.
If you want to go get a loan from a local bank or a local credit union, they're going to either want to see a W-2 or they're going to want to see at least 1, if not 2 years of tax returns for your business. And if you don't have that already and you just quit, now you've eliminated that W-2 and you haven't had built the time to get those 1 or 2 years.
That's
so it's
right.
not always the best idea to quit your job. Now, the only caveat, Mike, is there are some lenders now, nationwide lenders that will lend to an LLC, and I'm using a couple of them, and they don't check taxes or W-2s. It's amazing. They're lending more so on the asset, which is awesome. Now, the flip side of that is their fees are going to be higher.
Right.
You're going to have $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 worth of closing costs. You may have to prepay some escrows, so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean that, it's going to stop you from getting into doing BRRRR deals.
Right, right. So David, let's just talk just for a moment about if folks are listening right now and they really want to keep some rentals, but they're primarily just wholesaling everything or rehabbing here and there. How do they kind of transition and start to layer some of that other extra strategy and where they can keep some rentals?
Absolutely. So if you're already wholesaling, you are a leg up because you essentially, I'd hope at least, you are doing some direct to seller marketing. You're on the phone with sellers. You know how to negotiate and put properties under contract. And I think the most important thing, I'm going to save the best for last, is that you've built confidence. And that's a
Right.
lot. That's something that's, that's typically the hardest thing for me to do whenever a new student comes in, is to build, is for them to be confident.
Right.
Yes, I can build them up, but the best way to get confidence is to do and to win, right?
Yep. Yep.
So if
Yeah.
you're already wholesaling, you are a leg up because you have a bunch of skills now that will help you position yourself into deals. The only difference is once a property is under contract, instead of turning around and marketing it to another local investor and trying to make a quick pop, it's changing the mindset and just say, all right, I want to hold this one now. So you may have to actually buy that property, which is what we do. So you're going to need to go build some relationships with some hard or private money lenders. And then from there, fix that property up, get it rented, take it to a bank and refinance. And again, even if you leave a couple thousand in the property in the beginning, that's not the end of the world because it's better than 30 like I did in the beginning, right? But after you do a couple, and my goal with my students is to speed them way up. So that way they can start doing BRRRRs with no money out of pocket on their very first deal.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think there's a mindset shift there because I don't think that a lot of people get into wholesaling because they see quick and easy money. Now it's not easy and it's not as quick as most people would think. The key is consistency, but I don't think that you can have success in life unless you learn how to have some delayed gratification. Like you have to be willing to say, hey, I won't take a $20,000 wholesale fee right now or a $10,000 wholesale fee because I'm going to bet on myself in the long term. And that's going to be worth hundreds of thousands, if not more, right? You have to be willing to set some aside if you want to build wealth. Otherwise, this whole thing is just a job, right?
100%. And Mike, let me add one more thing real quick. So, and again, I'm assuming that most people don't know this, but the IRS taxes you on your income, right? They don't tax you when you create wealth. Now you may create wealth and then sell that property in 6 months or 6 years or whatever, and you're going to have an income event that's going to be taxable. But one of the main reasons why I love rental properties so much, not only, there's like 10 reasons, right? But one of my favorite reasons is that if I can get a 20, 30, 40, $50,000 equity capture event, that's wealth that I've created that I don't pay a dollar in taxes on. I only pay taxes on my income, right? So if you do that $10,000 or $20,000 wholesale, hey, great, you got 10 or 20 grand. Now you're gonna have to pay the government somewhere between 3 and 7,000 of that. Right. Well, if I do a 20 or 30 or $40,000 equity capture, I don't pay the government a dollar on that until I sell and realize that money as income. Yep. So I think one of the biggest mindset shifts that I had took place probably about 4.5 years ago. And I decided, you know what? I don't like paying taxes. So I'm going to just not pay taxes or, not illegally, of course, but I'm going to do everything in my power to prevent having to pay taxes. So when I wake up now, my goal isn't necessarily to create more income. It's a secondary goal by all means, but it's not my number one goal. My number one goal is create wealth because wealth isn't taxed. Income is.
That's awesome. Not yet, at least.
Not yet, at least. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So David, if folks wanted to learn more about you, what you've got going on, you got a lot of stuff going on, where do they go?
Mike, I really appreciate you having me on the show today, man. Thank you so much. Yep. If anybody's interested in buying rentals and or using the BRRRR method, that's what I love to do. That's my passion. I do have a program. I mentioned, a couple of times that students doing this or that. You can learn more about BRRRR method, myself, and or the program at BRRRRmethodmastery.com. And that could be B with 3 R's. It could be B with 4 R's. We have both of the domains. So don't worry. BRRRRmethodmastery.com is going to be a place to learn more. And if you want to book a call with myself or my team, you can also do that on that page.
Cool. We'll add a link down below in the show notes here. So David, thanks for sharing some knowledge with us today, my friend.
Hey, Mike, thank you so much for having me. I am super grateful for you, your time, and your
buddy.
podcast, because you're providing so much value to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, man. It's awesome.
Well, glad you're here. Thanks so much. Great to see you always.
Thanks, Mike.
And everybody, hey, thanks a ton for joining us today. Hope you got some good value here. We'll add some links down below in the show notes. Make sure you check them out. Hope you're doing great. Happy investing. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to today's show. There are 3 ways I can help you start or grow your real estate investing business. If you're a new investor and just getting started, the Flip Nerd Investor Coaching Program is the most effective program in America. I've been coaching and mentoring new real estate investors for 10 years, and my students have literally purchased thousands and thousands of properties. Many of them started with little to no experience at all. Our program is a paint-by-numbers program where we tell you exactly what to do week by week to make sure that you don't get distracted on your way to results. We show you how to build a real business, not just create another job for yourself. New memberships are limited. You can learn more and apply or schedule a call with me and my team at flipnerd.com/coaching. If you're an experienced investor doing a minimum of 10 deals a year, up to 500 deals a year or more, or have a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio already, you should check out our powerful Investor Fuel Real Estate Investor Mastermind. Over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors are members, and it's not uncommon for our members to 2 to 5x their business just from getting around other members at Investor Fuel. At Investor Fuel, each of us are business advisors to one another's businesses, but we don't stop at business. We focus heavily on becoming better people and living fuller lives. If you're looking for fuel for your business or fuel for your life, please check out investorfuel.com. Applications and interviews are required, as most investors are not a fit for our community. Please learn more at investorfuel.com. If you're not ready for coaching or masterminds but eager to start learning more about investing, please join our private Facebook group by visiting flipnerd.com/Facebook. New members get access to free training from us right here at flipnerd.com, and it's a community to safely ask your questions, a great place to get started. Simply go to flipnerd.com/Facebook to request your access today.